Today I'm going to be walking you through how to use the Python debugger extension in VS Code. So first off, we're going to double check if we even have this Python extension. Head over to our marketplace right over here and then type in Python debugger. Should be the first thing that pops up, the one with 62 million downloads right here. And once that is all downloaded, we'll see this menu right over here, this run and debug menu. So we're going to click on that, and I have right over here a file opened called buggy.py. It is a file that contains a function called countVowels, and this function has some bugs in it. And the reason I know that is because I've set up some doc tests, which we learned about in the last video that I made. Please go review that if you have not seen it yet, as it makes this whole process make way more sense. So we have this doc test set up, and let's just run this code and see how it performs. Unfortunately, we have some failures right over here. So we are going to get rid of this, and we are going to set a breakpoint. So if you hover over the number right here on the left-hand column, we're going to set a breakpoint right over here. This function main calls the countVowels function, and I will tell you why I'm adding this breakpoint at main and not at countVowels in just a moment. So we have this breakpoint at line 38, and we can see down here in our breakpoints menu, we have added this breakpoint on line 38, and it is located in buggy.py. There is also another way to add extra breakpoints. You can add this plus and then say, I want count vowels to be a breakpoint. And this just essentially adds a breakpoint at the function definition right here. So line 6. We do not need this right now, so I will just uncheck that, but we can check it back later on if we want to add a breakpoint there. If you want to toggle your breakpoints, you can use this, which just takes your breakpoints and turns them off for a bit. This is if you want to use the uncaught exceptions breakpoint, as opposed to like the ones that you placed yourself. And then we also have this item right here that just removes all of our breakpoints. So this is before even starting a debugging session. We have already placed down this breakpoint at line 38. And let's run over here. There's two ways to start a debugging session. We can hit this button right here, or we can also go over to our run file play button and click on the drop-down menu and hit debug Python file in our debugger. Now there are a couple options that will pop up when you hit run and debug. We have our debug configuration. Just always click the Python file, debug the file that you are currently on. We'll work with more complex ways to debug later. So I have started my debugging session, and we have our breakpoint right here. And as you can see, we have a section that stores all of our local variables and along with our global variables. Very helpful. This menu right here, watch, is essentially something that we can use to monitor certain lines. So if I were to say length of vowels, because we are not currently in the function countVowels at this line 38, we're going to get a name error, and this is helpful to kind of double check where you're at and whether or not Python is correctly storing your variables, or whether or not your code is incorrectly storing your variables. But if we continue playing, we see that we have this little menu up here. This is how we go through our code. This play button will just continue until the next breakpoint, or until, for our case, it would just be print doctest.testmod, and then it would be over. But we are going to use this step into key. The step over key will take you, it will execute the countVowels function, but it will not step into the function. This step into will step into the function countVowels. So if I click down there, it will execute main, and then go back up to count vowels, and then take us into the actual count vowels function. And that's what we want. If I were to do step over, it would just kind of be like a black box call. And then this button right over here, step out, is what we use if we want to get out of the function that we were calling. So I'm just going to restart that real fast. So I've used this green button right up here to restart our debugging session. So we're stopped at main, and we're going to use the step into to go over to count vowels, which we'll call up here. And now we are on the line 26 vowels, and we can see in our watch menu that the length of vowels is still not defined, which means that whichever one we're on, we have to get to the next line before it is defined. So now in our watch menu, we see that the length of vowels is 5. And down in 28, so for characters in our input string, we're going to loop through each character in our string. If the character, lowercase, we're converting to lowercase, is in our vowels, A-E-I-O-U string, up here we can see that our vowel string is defined, we can see that our input string is hello, and we can see that the character we're on is the first one, H. So because H is not in vowels, it's going to go back up here to the 4, and it's going to go to our next character, which is E, checking if it's in vowels. It is, so it's going to go over to count, which count is equal to 0, and it's going to add 1 to the count. It's going to increment it by 1. So let's head over to our next one. We're just kind of going through, and at some point we will see on our O that when we go over to count, it's reset to 0 before we're able to increment the accumulator by another 1. So it's reset at 0. The max we could get with the longest word with the most amount of vowels is 1, no matter what. So the way to fix this is we're just going to take this, we're going to add it right up here, and we are going to get rid of this count. And hopefully that should fix our code. And if we didn't have this little local variable chart up here, it might be more difficult for us to find that, which is why the Python debugger is so helpful. You can also see down here we have our call stack. This is kind of just the order of calling. We see that we have the module buggy.py, and then we have our main function down here. Our main function is calling count vowels, and we can load more stack frames and see like some interior stuff, but doesn't matter all too much. So let's stop this debugging session because we found the bug. Let's save this file, and let's run the file and see if we get any issues on our doc test. All right, look at that. 0 failed and 4 attempted. So our doc test now is passing, which means that we have fixed the bug in our code. Yeah. I have created this other file, practice debug, for you to take this buggy code and try to practice the debugger extension on VS Code by going through this. So you're welcome to write that down and test it out. Yeah, thank you so much for watching.